Episode 1 of Aim to be a Pokemon Master was a perfect way to kick off Ash's final adventure. It begins with Ash and Pikachu just goofing off and having a fun time deciding which way to go, truly highlighting how close they are as best friends after all these years. Some of Ash's older Pokemon return. We have Noivern, Donphan, Reptile, and of course Buizel. It was great to see these older Pokemon come back to the screen. But the main part of this episode is Ash healing and encountering Latias. Of course, we all know how familiar he is with this Pokemon, but it was great to see him encounter it one-on-one and heal it and be able to be its friend. Almost. He befriends it, protects it from Team Rocket, and Latios helps out Ash in the end. But we really saw how far Ash has come as a trainer, commanding his older Pokemon, but being able to gain the trust of a legendary and heal it. This really felt like a classic Pokemon episode and was great overall. Episode 2 of Aim to be a Pokemon Master has got to be one of the funniest Pokemon episodes I've seen in quite a long time. This episode brings back the OG Pokegirl, Misty, and this truly felt like a classic Pokemon episode from the original series. This is just a classic fishing competition between Ash and Misty to see who's gonna get the chance to catch Clauncher. This episode also brings back Totodile, the God Rowlet, Leavanny, and my boy Corphish. Totodile, Leavanny, and Rowlet were just kinda there, but they were all funny to watch and they showed off their personality traits perfectly. But this episode focused more on Corphish and him battling it out against Clauncher. But I love that this episode showed that it doesn't need to push a character to a new goal, it can just bring them back and have a fun time, and that's what made this episode so funny and so great, and I think it was another perfect way to continue the final adventure of Ash and Pikachu. Episode 3 of Aim to be a Pokemon Master was quite enjoyable, but rather disappointing. In this episode, Brock returns, and we also get Mr. Fabulous himself, Cilan. Cilan does his classic connoisseur time and detective time as well, but Brock gets his heart broken by a girl at a restaurant because he didn't know she was already taken. This gives us vibes as the same time that Brock got rejected by Professor Ivy, so that was kind of funny, but man, it lasted the entire episode when it really didn't need to. So a wild Hatterene takes advantage of this, and thus plays tricks on Ash, Misty, and Cilan, and it just involves a lot of charades of them running through the forest, and while it was a fun trio to see, not only that, we did not get any new Ash Pokemon returning in this episode, unfortunately, but the whole episode was kind of mid, but it did end up having Cilan versus Brock at the end, which was kind of cool, but overall, the episode could have been a lot better. Episode 4 of Aim to be a Pokemon Master was actually quite emotional, surprisingly. It involves Ash, Misty, and Brock traveling through a snow-covered forest that's caused by a wild Beartic that can't control its ice powers. So Ash works on helping Beartic to control its ice powers, and we get the return of Snorlax, Incineroar, Talonflame, and Oshawott. But this involves Beartic going berserk and creating an abyss in which Ash, Pikachu, and Oshawott fall down. Ash is willing to give his life so that Beartic can take Pikachu and Oshawott to the surface because Ash can't move because he twisted his foot. This man is so wholesome, he's ready to sacrifice his life for these Pokemon and stay down there. But even though his old Pokemon returned and didn't do much, this episode was actually really amazing because it showed how Ash is able to train literally any Pokemon that he comes across. While the focus was on Ash and Beartic, it was still quite an enjoyable episode to say the least. Episode 5 of Aim to be a Pokemon Master is nothing but love for Ash's OG Kanto Pokemon. We gather the Gang of Four once again to watch a fire performance from the Squirtle Squad. Yes, this episode brings back Ash's beloved Squirtle as we see a performance of Squirtle and the Squirtle Squad putting out a fire. Now, the conflict in this episode is a little contrived and forced as Team Rocket prevents Ash from visiting Squirtle, so Squirtle thinks that Ash really doesn't want to see him, and it just feels like that Pikachu jealousy episode that we got in Pokemon Journeys. But nonetheless, Pikachu, Squirtle, Charizard, and Bulbasaur work together in the end to put out a real fire at a warehouse on the docks. This episode was great just to see Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Charizard together once again. I think it was great. It was great to see Ash get recognition as champion, and it was just great to see these Pokemon together again. It's been so long, and it felt like a classic episode just seeing Squirtle do its thing with the Squirtle Squad. I loved seeing Ash's Kanto starters together on screen again. Squirtle and the Squirtle Squad returned in episode 5 of Aim to be a Pokemon Master, and in this episode they put on a performance in which they put out a fire caused by Team Blaze? Team Rocket undergoes the persona of Team Blaze during this performance, but if you've been around on this channel long enough, you would know that 5 years ago, I made my own Evil Team series when it was really popular in the community about my team known as Team Blaze. It was a 5-part series going over my story beginning in Sinnoh, traveling the world, and forming Team Blaze. So I just think it is super funny and quite a coincidence that Pokemon also gave Team Rocket the name Team Blaze for this one specific episode, for this specific performance. I doubt the Pokemon Company has even seen my 5-part series, but nonetheless, it's quite a funny coincidence that Pokemon and me have the same evil team. Episode 6 of Aim to be a Pokemon Master is one of the funniest so far, but definitely the most wholesome so far in the epilogue. It focuses on Ash and Pikachu getting back together again after being separated due to Team Rocket shenanigans. We get a quick cameo in return of Ash's Snivy, which was great, and then we get hilarious shots and scenes of Gyarados chasing Pikachu and Meowth, Venipede chasing Pikachu and Meowth, and Pikachu and Meowth traveling like Spider-Man due to the Caterpie that they bond with. But what I love the most and the highlight of this episode, besides Latios saving Ash and Pikachu at the end of the episode, is when Ash and Pikachu show how close they truly are when they both stare at the moon when they rest for the night. We get these shots and sequences of Ash and Pikachu bonding throughout all their various adventures, and it's just so beautiful to see from Kanto all the way up until their fight with Leon in Pokemon Journeys. It's so beautiful, and I did not expect them to go that route in this episode. When they bond at the end, it's just so beautiful and heartwarming, and I love the episode all around. This was by far the best episode yet of Aim to be a Pokemon Master. This episode focuses on Ash, Brock, and Misty helping out a Wailmer stuck in a hole. Oh no, they're remaking the Marshtomp episode again, aren't they? But they subvert our expectations and we get such a fun episode, as this episode gives us the return of Kingler, Heracross, Lapras, Bayleaf, and my boy Torterra. So good to see him again. Even Kamon is back on screen and in action. I love the teamwork between all the Pokemon, Ash, Brock, and Misty. Brock's Marshtomp returns as well, and even Team Rocket was actually very useful in this episode, even going Super Saiyan, I guess? It was funny that Pikachu basically had to threaten them in order for them to help. But the highlight of the episode is definitely seeing Lapras return, which honestly made me tear up a little bit, and it was so wholesome to see Ash and Lapras together again. It was funny, it was very enjoyable, and I loved every moment in this episode. There's a secret hidden Easter egg in episode 7 of Aim to be a Pokemon Master that you may not have noticed. This episode focuses on the return of Ash's Lapras and the gang helping out a Wailmer stuck in a hole. Now at first glance it seems like they're just recreating the Marshtomp episode of Pokemon Journeys that nobody liked, but they don't, and instead give us such an awesome reference to an old school Pokemon short that played right before the first Pokemon movie, Pikachu's Vacation. This short eventually unfolds into Charizard getting stuck in a stone structure and he can't get out, so he's reliant upon the help of everyone else that's there to get him unstuck. The imagery of the ropes that they use, everyone tugging on Charizard to get him unstuck, is the exact same thing that we see in this episode with all the Pokemon and all of the characters tugging on the vines of Torterra to get Wailord unstuck from the cave that it is stuck in. This is literally such a great callback to a short that I believe many people may have forgotten about. But what do you think about this Easter egg? Episode 8 of Aim to be a Pokemon Master definitely had me in my feels. It featured a Banette going around town stealing a ton of heart-shaped items. Very interesting. But it's revealed that when it was a plush doll, a substitute doll, and it had an owner in its childhood, it was revealed that its owner gave it a heart-shaped decoration to put on its ear, and when it was abandoned, not on purpose but simply forgotten during a move, the heart-shaped decoration eventually withered into dust, and it was trying to get a replacement. Ash, Brock, and Misty eventually realized this with the help of Gengar, so glad it was helping out in this episode. We get a quick cameo of Dragonite as well, and they help Banette get a new hairpiece. Eventually it's revealed that Nurse Joy was the little girl that used to own the substitute doll. They reunite, and it's such a beautiful moment that definitely made me and lots of other people cry. A beautiful episode. Prepare for trouble and make it double. Episode 9 of Aim to be a Pokemon Master brings back all of Team Rocket's Pokemon with the original gacha machine, Delibird. Delibird arrives and gives them all of their old Pokemon that they left at HQ out of the blue. They get one last recording from Giovanni, and I'm so glad that the OG interrogation / Team Rocket meeting music was used during this moment. They use all their old Pokemon to isolate Ash, Brock, and Misty, and eventually Pikachu, so that they can go out on one final assault in order to catch the strongest electric mouse in the Pokemon world. However, they get divine intervention as Latios, a legendary Pokemon that's been watching Ash and helping him, intervenes in order to save Ash, save Pikachu, save everybody else, and they thwart Team Rocket's plans. Then they split up on this very serious note, and I don't know how to feel about it, but other than that, it was a great episode to see all their Pokemon once again. This episode was basically Pokemon Heroes 2.0, and I absolutely loved it. We finally get Latios on screen that's being hunted by Discount Pokemon Hunter J, and his Hydreigon, which is an equivalent to Hunter J's Salamence. Latios and Latias use the dream sharing feature that we saw in Pokemon Heroes in that movie to find out where Latios is being held. We get the return of Swellow, and Pikachu goes head-to-head with Latios, and I think that these are both amazing references to Ash's battle against Latios in the Sinnoh League semifinals. Latios then decides, after being able to trust Ash, that it will battle alongside Ash. It uses Psychic and Aura Sphere to defeat the Hunter's Hydreigon, it then is apprehended by Officer Jenny, and then Latios and Latias go their separate ways. Back to Alto Mare, the city in the 5th Pokemon movie. We get to see the girl from the Pokemon movie, and this was just an absolutely amazing episode, an amazing reference. It's finally happened. After 25 years of adventures, Ash and Pikachu have left the Pokemon anime. Ash Ketchum returns to Pellet Town. Gary asks him if, after all of his adventures, if he's finally a Pokemon master. Ash contemplates about this a lot with Pikachu, thinking back on his entire journey, everything he's been through, all his battles, his losses and achievements, and he finally says that if he meets all the Pokemon in the world and bonds with them, maybe one day he'll be a Pokemon master. That's gotta be what it means. And we finally get the return of Pidgeot. My goodness, the tears came out when Pidgeot came back on screen, and he rejoins Ash's team as well. This was the most heartbreaking and beautiful goodbye between the harmonica that plays before Type Wild playing at the end of the credits, and I love this open-ended ending for Ash Ketchum. Thank you for everything, Ash and Pikachu. It has been one hell of a ride, and I cannot wait to see you again one day, maybe in Pokemon Horizons.